welcome back. This is World Talks coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Jastrzębska. After nearly 5 centuries, a pope has returned to Monaco, with Pope Leo making the tiny but wealthy principality his first European destination. The visit raised eyebrows, with some questioning why Monaco was chosen over more troubled regions. But the Vatican said the trip was about influence, values, and using even the smallest states as a platform to speak to all of Europe. To discuss the visit, I have Michał Kłosowski, Deputy Editor-in-Chief, Wszystko Co Najważniejsze, joining me right now. Good morning, sir. Delighted to have you with us.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
So let's start with the obvious question. Why Monaco, aside from beautiful sights? Some Vatican observers said they're puzzled by the decision. Is this symbolic, strategic, or both?
Well, it was rather a quick visit. It was just one day of Pope Leo visiting Monaco, which was like the reason why he came here was explained very well by Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Secretary of State, because he said in an interview for Vatican News that the Vatican has choose this country, Monaco, because first of all, it's Catholic. It's an example of a very smooth cooperation between the government and the church. And last but not least, it is kind of like an example for many other, even bigger players that the current international order is working, because this kind of states like Monaco, small countries, are very much dependent on the multilateral world order. That's what Cardinal Parolin said. But because of this visit, the eyes of the whole world were in here. Everybody were looking to Monaco and to Pope Leo the 14th, who said some very important words in here, using this focus given to him because of this visit.
We're going to get to that in a moment, but I wanted to ask you, could this, signal a shift away from the approach of late Pope Francis, who focused more on marginalized regions and poorer countries?
Well, yes and no, and that's kind of like a contradictory answer, because from one hand, I would say that Pope Leo has been following Francis by choosing this country, Monaco. It's a small country, it's a small state, just in the middle between two founder states of European Union, France and Italy. So that's kind of like logic of Pope Francis, who was also choosing this kind of small political players, political actors, small states. On the other hand, exactly, everybody was thinking, that this is one of the richest regions in the world. But even so, Pope Leo said some very important words in the spirit of Pope Francis, because he said that, being rich is a gift, and it's a gift which can be offered to those who are in need. And it was very in the spirit of Pope Francis.
And I have another quote from Pope Leo here. In his homily, he stated that peace is not merely a balance of power, it is the work of purified hearts, of those who see others as brothers and sisters to be protected, not enemies to be defeated. So what was his message here?
Pope Leo the 14th is a pope of peace, because since the beginning of his pontificate, he's talking a lot about peace, about the way how we can build peace in the earth. And choosing Monaco was important also because of that, because Monaco as a state exists between two great countries which were founders of the European Union. So basically, he showed us in Monaco that everybody can build bridges between countries, between the people, because as Father Christian Venard, who is a spokesperson of the Archbishop of Monaco, told me, this is a very particular church here in Monaco, because this is a church of a very rich people and a very poor people who are working for those who are very rich. But in Sunday, they are all sitting in the same church, praying, and there are no divisions between them, because they're all equal in the church.
But can a visit to such a small state really carry weight on broader European issues such as inequality, war, social values?
Well, it was very significant that the Pope chose a helicopter to get in here because, there was a delegation which was flying directly from Rome to Nice and then from Nice to Monaco by a bus. But the Pope chose a helicopter flying from Rome to Monaco, which makes it even more significant because he was directly visiting only Monaco, not France, not any other part of Europe. And I would say that it was also a message for European elites, for those who are in power, decision makers, that look, you should be aware not only about the great superpowers, not only about those who are in power, but also about the small churches, small communities, even as this one in Monaco. Also because in the mass on the stadium of Monaco, there was a lot of flags from different countries, not only from Monaco, France, Italy, from Cameroon, from a lot of other African countries, etc., etc. So yeah, I would say that it was a clear message for those who are in power in Europe that they should be looking not only on those great countries, big countries, but also to those who are small, who are kind of like in need, and who are maybe a little bit under the radar. And I think that he, make it very clear during this visit.
So, in addition to the Mass that we've already discussed, the Pope held a private meeting with Prince Albert II and Princess Charlene. So, what role does this kind of high-level engagement play in Vatican's diplomacy, these one-on-one talks, and what were some of the topics?
Well, as you mentioned in the beginning, the Pope has been visiting Monaco since 5 centuries. It was the first visit of the Pope after 500 years. It was super significant for the Prince Albert II and his family, of course. And the topics they were discussing privately, as we know so far, were mostly about the coexistence of the light in the church in one country, the traditional Catholic roots of the Principality of Monaco, but also some family values because Prince Albert II is well known as a very family person for many. And then after this private meeting, both of the leaders, the Pope and the Prince, they hold a short meeting with the people gathered in front of the palace. Both were speaking from the window and the top of the palace. And it was also kind of significant because they were standing hand to hand. It was almost like two brothers or two people on the same level speaking together to those who were gathered in front of the palace. So it was also kind of important for many in here, not only in Monaco but in this part of France and Europe as well, to see that it is possible to coexist on the level of faith and the public policy.
So, given that Pope Leo is the first American pope, how is he balancing global expectations? And what about his relations with American politicians, such as, of course, President Donald Trump?
Yes, that's a very hot topic, isn't it? Pope Leo is possibly the first pope who was discussing some issues on Twitter with the Vice President J.D. Vance, American U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. It is also significant because he has the courage to speak loudly about the gospel, about the Catholic social teaching, which he mentioned also here in Monaco during his visit. And it's very well known that he's kind of like critical for the current administration which is in Washington. But from the other hand, he's very open for the American culture as well in the Vatican. One of his closest friends is the Augustinian general, the head of Augustinian order. He's also American. So it's mixed, it's balanced also. But being American and choosing Monaco for his first visit in Europe, it's also important for us to see that there are some differences between the countries and the Pope who is American and the American politics.
And how do you think this visit will have a lasting impact? And if so, what would that be?
I was in the stadium yesterday, and I saw all those young fellows sitting in the front row, seeing the Pope, being very happy. And I would say that that's gonna be the most important impact of this visit, because the Pope pilgrimage gathered a lot of people, not only from Monaco, but also from the whole south of France, some parts of Italy, a lot of schools, kids from teenagers, etc., etc. It's gonna be a very memorable moment for all of them, first of all, and then I think it's gonna be also important in the future for Pope Leo because he faced himself. He saw how the Catholic Church can coexist with a very laïc and public government in here in Monaco.
Michał Kłosowski, Deputy Editor-in-Chief, Wszystko Co Najważniejsze. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for watching World Talks. Please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.